Okay, so here we go. So yeah, we're gonna deal with cracked earth here, and like I said in the past, if you recall, this is looking at this up close. We're looking at these layers. All right, I have a background layer. I have shadow that's being cast on this background texture, and then I have this cracked earth that, if we look at it, we can see it has a thick edge. It's got a shadow, it's got highlight, all right, so we can assume we're going to use some bevel and emboss on that. I would definitely want to stop what you're doing and watch me for a little bit. Okay, so this is my version of the cracked earth. It's not perfect. My lines are a little bit thick, all right, in comparison. Some are thicker and thinner. I could go in there and make adjustments if I wanted, but I'm not. This is good enough for now. So I'm going to just, this was just a light and darkness layer on there, so I'm turning that off. This is this top. I'm going to turn that off and then turn this off, and then just deal with this texture first. So what is that? That is a gradient, and then it has a funky little filter on there. It's got some noise, so let's just put a let's just kind of recreate that so you can see how I did that. Gradient, and I'll select two colors. Alright, and just with my gradient tool, just kind of drag across it. Oh, what is that? That is, that's not good. Let's just drag that out. There we go. All right, perfectly fine. There. So got a gradient there. Mr. A, that doesn't look like a texture, not yet. So well, I'll leave it selected. I'm gonna go to filter. We haven't really looked at filters yet, so here we are. Filters. I'm gonna add some noise. Noise is like a speckly pattern. Add noise. You can add noise in a monochromatic or not monochromatic. Not monochromatic means it has colors. We don't want that. I want to keep it monochromatic. And too much noise, that's way too much noise. So we're going to reduce that. And so I want to just give it this kind of textury look. See that? So we already kind of see some of this background grainy texture that's there. So that's what I've done to that. Then, if I remember correctly, I went to another filter and I went to some lighting effects. And I'm trying to remember where it is because they move things around on me. Render lighting effects. Render lighting effects. And what is going to happen? It's going to kind of open up this other. Come on, you. That is not right. I'm going to hit cancel on that. I'm not sure what was going on there. Alright, let's try it again. Filter and render and lighting effects. Ah, yeah. So the light is in the wrong place. Okay. So we have this light here, and we have different light. This is unique in that it gives this weird kind of basic lighting effect as if it were like a spotlight or something. There are different types: spotlight, a point light, an infinite light, and then there should be a, let's see, where are you, texture, and let's say red. You're not going to work for me now. Oh, here we go. Height. Yeah, there we go. So then you can get something that begins to look, it's going to cast shadows, and it begins to give it this kind of a three-dimensional quality to it, believe it or not. And you can choose the different light, this using a different, you can use a different height map for this. Red usually works just fine. I'm going to say OK to that, and then we'll zoom in and we'll see what it kind of did. So it's kind of, it really has kind of made that noise seem a little more three-dimensional, like grainy kind of dirt. It's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to use hue saturation. All right, control image, adjustments, hue, saturation, and I'm going to lighten it up. And say okay to that. Alright, that is going to be my backdrop. I could lighten it up more, but for us, for what we're doing, that should be fine. Well, maybe some brightness and contrast. Brightness, contrast, image adjustment, hue, saturation, brightness, contrast. Kind of brighten, yeah, we could brighten that up, and some maybe a little contrast to it as well. Fine. There's my background. Now I'm ready to build on top of that. You could get your background, you could do different things. You could use a speckled brush. You could do, like, how you get your background to be grainy and dirt-like is up to you. That was just a way that I came up with, and I thought it worked out pretty well. Next thing we're going to do is I need another, let me turn that off, is I need another gradient that I can put like a pattern on. I'm just going to use the same one from before because it really doesn't matter too much. And then I want these to be black and white. My color is black and white, and I'm going to use another filter, and this one is going to be, I have to remember, it is one that is going to do like crackles, pixelate, and I think it's crystallize. No, that is not it. So let's try, let's go to the filter gallery here, and then I can actually kind of just look through some of these, and let's see if I can find the one that I'm looking for. Texture? There, stained glass. That's what I'm looking for. Now that is too small, those cracks, right? And the color of these cracks, I mean, the color of the crack is dependent on, so I'm going to just say okay to that and then undo. So that, see, that's showing the size. I'm going to undo that for a minute. The color here is black, and that's why I got those cracks to be a black color. If I flip this to white, I can just do filter. I'm going to get white, the white cracks. Okay, that's fine. You just want a nice high contrast color. You wouldn't want to use a color brown that would make it difficult to select. I'm going to go back to black, filter, and that was what was it again? Why am I having a hard time thinking today? Pixelize, it was stained glass. Well, let's just find it here. Filter gallery, there it is. All right, stained glass, and I think those are still a little bit too small cell size, so I'm going to increase that a little bit more, something like that. Looks pretty good. Say okay. So now I have my cells. But I want to get rid of, actually I should have had a little bit thicker lines, but that's okay. We can adjust that too. So now I want to get rid of the black. What tool selects by color? Magic wand. So now I'm going to select by all that black. I'm gonna, if you didn't know this, you can expand your selection. I'm going to expand it by 1 pixel. There we go. And I could just delete, or if I wanted to, I could put a layer mask. I'm just going to delete. And so now you can see I have this, right? So now I have some cracked earth pieces on top of my dirt texture. Now, is the color right? Not exactly. I can adjust it. Image, adjustments, hue, where are you? Hue, saturation. Hue, saturation. I can lighten it up. It's probably something a little bit lighter like that. Okay. Another thing I could do is the earth is has a little bit of texture to it. So now we know we could put noise on there. So I'm going to just lock my layers because I want the noise only to go on there. I think it would have anyway, but I'm just going to double check. Noise, add noise. That is too much, so I'm going to reduce that a little bit. And then also it's still kind of speckly, so I'm going to go to my filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and blur that out. Look at that. So now I can really kind of soften that up more. I'm increasing the amount of blur. It's not blurring my edges because I have the pixels locked, the transparency locked. So that is looking pretty good, all right? So that's looking more like a natural thing. The color is not right, but so you could, if you would started with your gradients and picked some colors out of this picture, it would have been closer. But for what we're doing, it doesn't really matter. All right, so our favorite, at least mine, bevel and emboss. So bevel and emboss, I want those to look thick. These are not an outer bevel, these are an inner bevel. And I want them to be not as big as that. And so let's bring these down, soften, down, something like that. And where is my light and shadow? So probably that probably works out pretty good. I'll say okay. Or I can jump right to my drop shadow because I know that I want that as well. So I'll put a drop shadow on there. In the drop shadow, the distance was too far. I want my distance to be just a little off, and the spread is too big, and the size is too big. All right, it's a pretty tight. We can see these shadows are pretty tight. They don't have much spread on them. All right, and it should be a little bit more like this, I think. Kind of the direction. I'm looking at the direction in this photo. Where is the it's not that. Oh, really? Maybe problematic on me. Alright, so I'm looking for the direction of the light source, where the shadow's aiming, and kind of above to the right, something like that. I'm going to say okay to that. So now what I can do is I can put a layer style on, I can put a layer mask on this because these are so perfect and these are not. So now that I have a layer mask on this, I can go in with a paintbrush, right? Paintbrush, hard edge, and I can like just kind of, you know, just draw around on these things, and I can make these look more like, you know, more natural. Some can have bigger gaps, right? We see some big gaps, so I can go in there and take some big gaps out if I'd like, and just make this. And since it's a layer mask, I can always put the stuff back in, right? So if I take too much out, I can take and put more back in. We have cracks that don't even go all the way through the mud, so I can kind of, and then maybe make the size get a little smaller. Alright, and so then I can just start really kind of artistically drawing here and creating my own kind of cracked earth kind of stuff. Okay, so that's how that occurs. So then, believe it or not, we're not done. If you notice, I had a whole nother layer because we want this to look like it's peeling. So once I do that, I can drag this, make a copy of it by dragging it on the layer maker, right? I'm going to turn off the drop shadow on this one, and I'm going to double click on my bevel and emboss, and I am going to change the direction of my bevel and emboss, and then I'm also going to select this, select, modify. I'm going to expand my selection. Is that the wrong way? Wrong way. Select, modify, contract my, and then and now I'm starting to get this little bit of a, I'm getting this reverse highlight that's happening with this bevel and emboss, so that I can get this to look a little bit more like a three-dimensional object. So you might be saying, Mr. A, there's no way I'm going to remember and know how to do all of that. That's okay. You're going to mess around. You're going to play with it the most you can. What I really want you to know is, one, filters, noise. We added some noise to give some texture. Also, that stained glass effect, so that you can break up your pattern and start there. After that, then you just start playing with drop shadows and bevel and emboss and start making your own way and figuring things out, okay? And trying to make your own version of this cracked earth. So that's that is really pretty much exactly how I did this. It's just this is all done in a much, you know, I just spent a lot more time doing it, obviously. You know, I really went in there and played around a lot more with it. This is that's the bottom piece. This is that top piece, and you can see how with its effects, let's turn that off, with the bevel and emboss effect. So that's giving the shadow and the highlight there. So that's how that's working. Alright, so that is what you're up to next. Good luck!